Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at the headlines. Hamas is likely to release 33 hostages as part of a ceasefire deal with Israel. Joe Biden says a truce is on the brink after 15 months of intense fighting in Gaza following the 7th of October attacks. The president of the International Court of Justice, Nawaf Salam, has been named as Lebanon's new prime minister. Two-thirds of the MPs voted for Salam, who will return to the country today. The Kremlin has accused Kyiv of energy terrorism and say they pose a threat to Europe's energy sector. This comes after Ukrainian drones targeted Russian gas pipes and the US imposed further sanctions on Russian oil. The trial of impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been adjourned after he failed to attend. The suspended president skipped the trial, which comes after his failed martial law bid. Negotiations between Israel and Hamas are progressing towards a potential ceasefire deal. In the first phase, 33 hostages are expected to be released, offering a glimmer of hope for the resolution of the 15-month war. Talks in Doha, led by Qatar and Egypt, have made significant strides, though the deal has not yet been finalised. Both sides are working towards a 42-day ceasefire, with Israel preparing for an immediate implementation once an agreement is reached. US President Joe Biden has expressed optimism, emphasising the humanitarian benefits of the deal. There's cautious hope that this will lead to further phases of negotiations, potentially freeing additional hostages and bringing an end to the devastating conflict. We're first joined by our correspondent, Aditya Wadwan. Aditya, thank you. We're looking at the US and US officials saying that a deal is on the brink and potentially within a week. Could you provide some more context on that for us?
Well, Josh, as it is very evident that, US President Donald Trump had said that he had vowed actually that if all the Israeli hostages are not released till the time he takes the oath as president, all hell will break loose. And he had given assurances that he will definitely end this Israel war between Israel and Hamas and Russia and Ukraine. So that is in line with them. Basically today also the Qatar has mediated. Qatar and Egypt had also mediated. Qatar has also offered to mediate between to further accelerate the process of ceasefire between the two sides. As per the ceasefire deal, in the first phase, 33 captives have to be released. That include women, small children, handicapped people. Those Israel army has been claiming that they might be dead or they might have been alive. So as per the Qatar's intervention, this entire process of ceasefire will happen in a staged process. In the first phase, 33 prisoners are yet to be Israeli captives are yet to be should be released by Hamas. Yes, George, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Aditya. We are now joined by Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, here in the studio. Joyita, we're looking at potentially an end to fighting for 42 days, giving relief to those living in Gaza. We're also looking at the return of 33 hostages. Is this a win-win for both sides in your eyes?
Well, I don't think as yet, because you see, when you are looking at the deal that they have struck, Hamas is talking in terms of 5 hostages for 50 prisoners to be released by Israel. So basically, if you are looking at 33 and if it comes to, you multiply that with 50, they are looking at 1500 to be released. And if you have looked back in terms of history, what has happened for the release of one soldier, Israel had released 1000 Palestinian Hamas people and all some time back. I don't remember exactly the year. And that has not really played out well for Israel later in terms of how these terrorist groups grew and all. But having said that, I think the people of Israel, there is push coming from, I think, within not so much his government, because there are these far right ministers who are threatening to resign if there is there is some kind of a ceasefire. But I think people are tiring, the soldiers are tiring, they need some kind. I think Israel has lost around 800 plus soldiers, almost 900 soldiers. And so you see there is some dissent happening in the military in terms of they are talking about at least 100 soldiers have said that they do not want to participate in the war. So basically for Israel also this is going to be some sort of a tactical break, as the similar tactical break that they have taken in Lebanon as well. So for Hamas, well, nothing much is left of the Hamas in 42, but the only good thing is that in 42 days they cannot regroup. So in a way you can call it a win-win for both sides, but I don't think 42 days is enough for Gaza to be rebuilt and all, because a whole lot of other things come into play, particularly what Trump brings in, this new Middle East envoy that he has selected. So if the aim is to right now create some kind of an island of peace inside of Gaza, well, I don't think it's happening in 42 days, but at least it's some kind of a start.
Joyita Basu, thank you very much for joining us. We're also joined by Professor Ephraim Inbar, who is the president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. I want to pick up on a point that Joyita made there, looking specifically at the feeling within Israel. Is there fatigue from this war? Is there a want from the people to bring the hostages back above any of the other Israeli military aims? And can you just provide some context for our audience?
Well, in Israel, of course, everybody supports the goal of the war, which is to remove Hamas from power in Gaza. But at the same time, people would like to see the hostages who are living in horrible conditions in the tunnels of Hamas, to see them back. Those are conflicting aims, because the release of hostages is dependent, according to Hamas' view, on a stoppage to the war, and making Israel unsuccessful in reaching its goal of removing Hamas from power. So this is a dilemma. Many people are willing to see the hostages back at any price, including putting a stop to the war, while others are against it. You also have to remember that the hostages deals that is being worked out includes also the release of Hamas terrorists in Israeli jail, which will continue to do what they've done in the past, killing Israelis. So this is a very cruel dilemma, and this is what the Israeli government must decide upon.
We're also joined by Yahya Mohammed, a former IDF spokesperson on UNIT, joining us live from Israel. Yahya Mohammed, thank you very much for being here. Looking at the potential influence of the United States, but also other nations in these talks, do you think that this is a case that the ceasefire deal will get over the line? We've been in a position before where other world leaders have said that it's close, but this time it seems to be different. What do you think that difference is? Is it coming from both sides, or is it a case that the humanitarian crisis has got so bad that a resolution and sort of diplomatic outcry on resolving the issue has sort of built up?
Thank you for having me. I think this ceasefire will go forward for a few reasons. It hasn't yet been announced, but I hope it will. The popularity of Hamas in Gaza has been in decline for the period of the war, and that pushed Hamas to actually consider and stop demanding unrealistic demands from the Israeli side. The Israeli side have been very upfront and very upfront with what Israel wants. All the Israeli people, Jews, Muslims, and Arabs, we all want our hostages to come back home as soon as possible. Hamas thinks that the Israeli public and the world has a short memory. Those people, civilians, were taken from their homes, from their beds on October 7th. And I think for those reasons, we might see a successful ceasefire deal where we see the hostages come back home And as the professor mentioned, comes at a very heavy price of releasing individuals who have chosen the path of violence and killing of Israelis as their sole purpose of their life. One of those people that we know very well is the late Yahya Sinwar, who have been released in such a deal and has carried out the attack of October 7th. We must break this cycle, and we will not forgive Hamas for what they have done to us.
Yeah, Mohammed, we have time for one more quick one. Is there feeling within Israel that there is some sympathy for those who are within Gaza and Palestinians who aren't affiliated with Hamas? We've had mentioned already that the popularity of Hamas is dropping. Is there any sympathy there for the tens of thousands of people that have died? And do you think that this ceasefire will be a good thing for those looking to rebuild their lives?
Absolutely. I actually have family members in Gaza. I fight in the ranks of the IDF. I fight the terrorists that have taken over the lives of my friends and family in Gaza and have turned their lives upside down, just like what they have done to my Israeli friends on October 7th. There are a lot of civilians in Gaza have not been happy with what Hamas has done. And let's not only talk about Gaza, but the entire Arab world has not been happy with what Hamas has done. I actually heard many Muslim Arabs criticizing Hamas for what they have done, knowing what Israel will do to retrieve the hostages and the Israeli civilians that were taken. I think there is a hope for peace. It's a real one right now. It will unfold within the upcoming few hours, and I think this would be crucial for both Israelis and the Gazans.
Yahya Mohammed, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you to Joyita Basu and Ephraim Imbar. We will, of course, over the next week or so, continue to bring you any updates that we get regarding the ceasefire deal. But we now move to North Korea, where fires multiple short ballistic missiles in a provocative move, say some, escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula. However, South Korea condemns the launch, warning of an overwhelming response to further provocations as international concern grows ahead of the US presidential inauguration. Here's the report.
In a provocative move, North Korea fired multiple short-range ballistic missiles off its east coast this morning, with the launch taking place from Ganggi, near the country's border with China. The missiles traveled about 250 kilometers, reaching a distance of 155 miles, and were launched around 9:30 a.m. local time. However, South Korea's military has strongly condemned the action, labeling it a serious threat to peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. The country's Joint Chiefs of Staff has warned North Korea against misjudging the situation, vowing to respond overwhelmingly to any further provocations. South Korea's acting President Choi Sang-mok has also expressed condemnation, calling it a violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions and signaling a stern response. This latest missile test comes just days before the inauguration of US President-elect Donald Trump, a time when tensions are running high. South Korean lawmakers have suggested that Pyongyang's recent missile tests may be aimed at drawing attention to its deterrent against the US and sending a message to the incoming Trump administration. Meanwhile, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi has confirmed Japan's awareness of the launch. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's head to North America for more latest news updates. The US Department of Labour has reached an agreement with JBS USA. This deal will provide $4 million in assistance to those affected by child labour practices. Investigations revealed that JBS's third-party contractors employed children in hazardous jobs at meatpacking plants in Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota and Nebraska. The deal aims to address these unlawful practices. A team of 72 Mexican firefighters met with US fire officials on Monday. They joined American firefighters to help fight the wildfires in Southern California. The team includes military specialists, doctors, engineers and search and rescue personnel. It also has firefighters from Mexico's equivalent of the US Forest Service. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has announced an economic plan to reduce imports from China. This move seemed to address US President-elect Donald Trump's claims that Mexico is a gateway for Chinese goods. Sheinbaum also defended the USMCA trade deal. She stated it was the best way for Mexico to compete with China. The agreement will be reviewed in 2026. Outgoing US President Joe Biden warned climate change skeptics in Donald Trump's incoming administration, calling them dead wrong. In a State Department speech, Biden emphasized that climate change is the single greatest existential threat to humanity. He criticized those who deny its reality and implied the urgency of winning the clean energy race against China. Since the implementation of a $9 congestion charge in New York City on January the 5th, traffic has decreased. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority reported that 273,000 fewer cars entered the central business district from Monday to Friday. This marks a 7.5% drop compared to projected weekday traffic. This is the first congestion fee of its kind in the US. David Weiss, the special prosecutor who investigated Hunter Biden, criticised President Joe Biden for making baseless accusations about the case. In a final report, Weiss defended his impartial investigation into Hunter's gun and tax crimes, stating it was not politically motivated. Hunter's lawyer argued that the case highlighted the abuse of prosecutor power. Nawaf Salam, president of the ICJ, has been appointed Lebanon's new prime minister. Coming from a prominent Sunni family and advocating for reform, he faces Lebanon's ongoing crisis, including economic turmoil and recent conflicts with Israel. Here's a full report about his selection and his journey there.
Nawaf Salam, president of the ICJ, has been named Lebanon's new prime minister by President Joseph Aoun. He is tasked with forming a new government to address escalating political and geopolitical tensions in the country. Salam comes from a prominent Sunni family in Beirut. His uncle played a key role in Lebanon's independence from France in 1943 and served multiple terms as prime minister. His cousin, Tamam, was also prime minister from 2014 to 2016. He holds doctorates in political science from Sciences Po and history from the Sorbonne, along with a Master of Law from Harvard. Salam worked as a lawyer and lecturer before serving as Lebanon ASEAN representative from 2007 to 2017. In 2018, he joined the ICJ and was elected president last February. His appointment is another setback for Hezbollah due to its recent war with Israel and loss of Syrian ally Bashar al-Assad. Hezbollah had sought to reappoint Mikati but ended up nominating no candidate. However, Christian and Sunni allies of Hezbollah did support Salam. 2/3 of the 128 members of parliament nominated the 71-year-old judge for the position reserved for a Sunni Muslim under a sectarian power-sharing system during consultations with newly elected President Joseph Aoun. New PM is viewed by many as a glimmer of hope following the 14-month Israel-Hezbollah war that resulted in 4,000 deaths and more than 16,000 injuries, causing destruction worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now for some updates from across the world of business. 10-year US Treasury yields hit 14-month highs. This caused the dollar to rise and sparked a sell-off in tech stocks. The impact spread to Asia, with Japan's Nikkei falling after a holiday break. US inflation data remained a key concern. The 10-year yield steadied at 4.77%. US equity futures showed modest gains early in Asia. Supertanker freight rates surged after the US expanded sanctions on Russian oil. Traders rushed to book ships for supplies to China and India. Chinese and Indian refiners are seeking alternative fuel sources. They are adjusting to stricter US sanctions on Russian oil producers and tankers. The sanctions aim to reduce Russia's oil revenue. Day trader Lu Delong's optimism for a China stock rally quickly faded in early January. Just months after positioning for a surge fueled by Beijing stimulus, he was forced to sell shares and record losses. Many retail investors like Lu followed suit, leading to the weakest start to the year for China's $11 trillion stock market in nearly a decade. According to the Financial Times, the European Commission is reassessing its investigations into tech giants like Apple, Meta and Google. The companies have urged President-elect Trump to challenge EU regulations, with sources suggesting his presidency impacted the review, though it was not the trigger. There are reports that Chinese officials are in early talks about selling TikTok's US operations to Elon Musk if a ban is imminent. While Beijing prefers ByteDance retain control, the future of TikTok in the US may involve either a competitive sale or a government-led arrangement, signalling that ByteDance's control could be at risk. Traders are encouraged by reports that new US leaders' team may raise tariffs gradually, which helped limit the dollar's surge. AI chip restrictions on China had little effect. Concerns about tax cuts, deregulations and immigration boosts could boost inflation. As a result, traders reduced expectations for Fed rate cuts in 2025, with some even predicting a hike. US President Joe Biden has said the federal government is covering most costs associated with fires for the next 180 days. However, he has urged the Congress to cover the additional costs of rebuilding LA homes. Watch more on this and the latest updates in Los Angeles. Here is the report.
While speaking on the ravaging Los Angeles fire, US President Joe Biden has said that rebuilding Los Angeles neighborhoods' smoldering ruins will carry a staggering cost in the billions of dollars.
It's going to cost tens of billions of dollars to get Los Angeles back to where it was. So we're going to need Congress to step up to provide funding to get this done. And we're going to get that done, God willing.
Biden also assured the public that his administration is closely monitoring the situation. The fires centered in Los Angeles have claimed 24 lives so far, with about 16 people still missing. The ongoing wildfire has displaced nearly 2 lakh residents and scorched over 39,000 acres of land, an area roughly to 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. Most fatalities occurred in the Eaton fire, while the Palisades fire accounted for 8 deaths. Amid this, there is some relief for the college and schoolgoers, as hundreds of thousands of children went back to classrooms. However, damaged schools and those in evacuation zones remained closed. As the investigation of the Los Angeles fire progresses, 9 people have been charged with looting in no-go areas. While questions continue to rise against the local authorities, the search for victims of the wildfire continue. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's head to the Indo-Pacific region for more of their latest news. New rules aim to prevent adversaries, especially China and Russia, from using advanced AI for military or surveillance. The US has introduced regulations to limit AI chip exports, affecting companies like Nvidia. These restrictions could impact the global AI chip market. China criticizes the US export rules as a violation of international trade. Beijing's Ministry of Commerce plans to take action to protect Chinese interests. Former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Khaleda Zia urges elections by August. She cited rising political and economic instability. Zia called for the interim government, led by Muhammad Yunus, to focus on national interests. Former PM Sheikh Hasina resigned after mass protests and sought refuge in India. Hasina and her party face legal issues, with many leaders in hiding. Her son, Sajib Wazed, supports elections by early 2026, as suggested by the army chief. Indonesia plans a minimum age for social media users to protect children, following Australia's ban on users under the age of 16. The specific age is still under discussion. With a population of 280 million, nearly 80% of Indonesians use the internet. Almost half of children under 12 are online, using apps like Facebook and TikTok. Among Gen Z users aged 12 to 27, usage is 87%. China's coastal sea temperatures hit a record 21.5 degrees Celsius in 2024, marking a second year of rise. Temperatures surpassed pre-industrial levels by 1.5 degrees Celsius, challenging the Paris Agreement limits. The country experienced extreme weather, including Super Typhoon Yagi and Shanghai's strongest storm since 1949. The government will closely monitor global sea temperatures in 2025. Following the earthquake that hit Tibet a week ago, 2 Tibetan Buddhist monasteries have been severely damaged, as claimed by state media. Many monks and nuns were injured, but the numbers are unknown. A 6.8 magnitude earthquake destroyed roofs and walls near Tingri County. Over 36,000 homes collapsed and 126 people have died. Rescue teams have saved trapped nuns and moved them to temporary shelters. Chinese censorship raises doubts about casualty reports. Russia and Vietnam signed a nuclear energy agreement during Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin's visit. Vietnam is reviving its nuclear energy plans shelved in 2016 due to costs and safety concerns. This initiative aims for energy self-sufficiency and emission reduction by 2050. Russia, facing declining arms orders due to sanctions because of their war with Ukraine, agreed to transfer a scientific research vessel. That's all we have time for. We'll be back shortly with more of your latest international news updates.